Class is now in session. I'm Professor Hockey, and today we will be recapping day 10 of the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Only one game on the day. It was Stars versus Avalanche. The Avalanche looking to force a Game 7, and that they would manage to do with a 4-1 victory tonight. So we will finally get a Game 7. There, of course, were none in the plans because those were best of fives, and there were none in the round 1. And so here in round 2, we finally get our first one. It's bound to be a very good one. This game ended up ending with a lot of rough stuff here from the Stars side, so I expect both teams will be energized for that game. This one started out, it was late in the first period, Heiskanen would score to make it 1-0, but then even later in the first period, Zadorov would score, tie it up at 1, then Makar, then Rantanen, and eventually McKinnon would add an empty netter to make it 4-1 final score. Good news for the Colorado Avalanche. I, of course, could talk about McKinnon and how well he's played throughout most of this series, really. I could talk about Rantanen, how well he's played. I could talk about some of these depth forwards for the Avalanche, or top 6 players, I could say, but just past that top line, like Kadri, Burakovsky, and the likes, all stepping up and still playing very, very well. But obviously the star here, or at least the main talking point, it has to be Michael Hutchinson in nets for the Colorado Avalanche. I was very suspect of Hutchinson in net as the third string. I said he was sheltered very well in that Game 5, and he still let in the 3 goals, so I wasn't sure what was going to happen here in Game 6 with the Stars maybe playing a bit of a better game. But the Avalanche, they sheltered him again well, and on the chances that the Stars that did get, Hutchinson was actually pretty good. This was actually a pretty solid performance from Hutchinson. Will it be able to hold up into Game 7? I'm really not sure. But it is a situation where he's played well, and credit must go towards him for exactly that. The bad news for the Avalanche, a couple of injury scares in this game. Connor Timmins doesn't look like he's going to be able to play Game 7. Now, luckily for the Avalanche, Timmins is not necessarily a major part here of this Avalanche defense. It's not as though Makar or Girard actually got injured, but still it is an injury of note. And then, of course, the second one and more important one will be Gabriel Landeskog. He ended up coming back in the third period, but then left again, similar to what Erik Johnson had done when he got injured back in Game 1. Erik Johnson hasn't played since then, so we'll see what is the case for the captain, Gabriel Landeskog. Will he get to play in Game 7? Because it could be a very big loss for the Avalanche. If not only is he sort of like a heart and soul kind of guy, he's also an extremely good player and plays on that top line with McKinnon and Rantanen, so that could be bad for them moving into the Game 7, but they do have all this momentum here. Good news for the Dallas Stars, it was not a great game. They're at the moment just sort of getting outplayed by the Avalanche in these past couple of games. Really, the only good news is the fact that the Avalanche are still running with a third string goaltender, Michael Hutchinson. If the Stars can get back to how they were playing through the first few games, where they seem to just be able to score at will, they shouldn't have too much issue getting pucks past Hutchinson in nets, but they really need to get on top of these things here for them. I should also mention that Khudobin played a pretty decent game here tonight. It seems as though that decision to start Bishop in Game 5 once his return to injury happened ended up being a really bad one. Khudobin has never been great in this series, but he's usually been about average to maybe slightly above average, and maybe that would have been enough to actually remain competitive in that Game 5 compared to what Bishop ended up doing. But Khudobin, solid here in Game 6. He absolutely will get the start going into Game 7. The bad news for the Dallas Stars, as I said, they've just sort of been getting outplayed, and this is what I expected to actually happen coming into this series from Game 1, but the Stars were very surprising through the first 4 games. But maybe this is sort of them showing their true colors here, and the Avalanche showing their true colors here in these past couple of games, where it's just been the Avalanche all over the Stars. So it's very possible, with all the momentum the Colorado Avalanche have going into this Game 7, that they might just end up taking it anyway. It'll be very interesting to see how the game starts, probably the most important thing. If the Avalanche get the first couple of goals, I don't necessarily see them relinquishing that lead. However, if the Stars can get the first one, most importantly, it's possible that they can actually get the Game 7 anyhow. But that will do it for this recap. In terms of my prediction, I had said that the Avalanche would win this series. It was looking pretty scary there after Game 4 when the Stars were up 3-1, but now that the series tied at 3 and anything can happen, I would put my money on the Avalanche anyhow. Class dismissed.